Again, my name is Jeff Snicer. I live off Schubert Drive on the North Shore of Kamloops, and I'm speaking on behalf of the KCSC Association. The KCSC Association Charter clearly outlines that we advocate for local governance. Whenever there's influence on the local government, we'd like to point that out so that the citizens of Kamloops can clearly see that the government in Kamloops is being influenced by outside sources. I have never seen such an obvious and clear example of that than what was passed here tonight. And what I'd like to do is just point that out through no fault of anyone on the council. I'd just like to show you what it is that I'm talking about using your own documents from tonight. This is the presentation that was provided from, I believe it was, I can't remember her name, consultant, anyways, the consultant that's working here, and she provided the report on the Coalition of Inclusive Municipalities. She gave us a nice presentation. It was full of all the right words. It talked about racism, diversity, equity, all the things that we'd like to support here in Kamloops, and why wouldn't we? But the question is, what exactly is this? What did you sign on to support tonight? Well, in Agenda 9.4, this report is asking the city to commit to joining a United Nations program called the Coalition of Inclusive Municipalities. This is the website. I printed this off today. It's UNESCO. UNESCO is the United Nations. She said that many times in her report. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is what you just signed on to. According to the report, joining this organization will cost taxpayers somewhere in the range of $12,000 to $40,000, if I understood correctly. And for those tax dollars spent, the citizens of Kamloops will now gain United Nations access to our employees to provide governance. United Nations access to train our city employees directly with the United Nations, to join other cities that are also getting governance and training from the United Nations. The goal stated in this document, okay, is that Kamloops wants to follow the 17 Sustainable Development Goals: poverty, gender equality, decent work, economic growth, reduce inequality, sustainable cities, commissions, peace and justice. The United Nations wants to stop racism in Kamloops, and who doesn't? But the question is, how can an organization called the United Nations that's not even in Canada possibly understand what the local community needs here in Kamloops? How could an organization that crosses all of Canada understand what we need here? And what value is joining this organization other than maybe the prestige, which she talked about, and just adding yourself to another list with an agenda? How are they going to help us? We don't know. And did I miss something? Since when is Canada a third world country? I've worked in third world countries. I spent 10 years in Iraq. I worked with English-speaking Iraqis that told me stories about working with the United Nations, and I know how they work. They spend a lot of money. They don't get a lot of results. It's a giant bureaucratic waste. And now Kamloops has just signed on to this. As far as I heard, we are a wealthy, sovereign, first world leader among nations. We don't need the United Nations to tell us how to manage our society, our environment, and economy. But that's exactly what this administrative report, which I understood was just adopted, is asking the council to do. How can an unelected international government's body possibly understand what's going on here? We as Canadians should be offended at the very idea that somehow we need help from the United Nations. Why would this idea have enough momentum to even reach the report stage and get here in front of council? I understood that this was put forward by Councilor Bepple. But again, I don't think anyone's reading the fine print. Do you really understand what you just signed? Because within this, you've now agreed to submit reports to UNESCO, to the United Nations. You're now reporting to the United Nations. Why? How is that adding value to the citizens of Kamloops? What possible good does that do? Again, the KCSC would like to remind the mayor and councillors respectfully, your job is not to save the world. You're supposed to be working for the citizens of Kamloops. The people of Kamloops elected you to represent them on local Kamloops matters, not global agendas. Clear and obvious global agendas. Did you guys even read this? It's all United Nations Sustainable Development. That's all it is. So the KCSC has the following questions for the mayor and council. Under what statutory or legal authority are you attempting to join a program from the United Nations, and how will that benefit the citizens of Kamloops? And are you saying that the local government here in Kamloops is incapable of managing local problems and needs help from the United Nations? Number two, who initiated this report? I know already, and please provide paper records showing how this came about. Will the city commit to, Mr. Mayor, will the city commit to providing this documentation in a reasonable amount of time? Thank you.
Mayor Hamer Jackson, that would require a council resolution. It's not something that can be unilaterally directed by any member of council.
Yeah, I was gonna ask staff, actually.
And staff would require council direction in form of a resolution to gather that data and make those responses.
Does anyone, any questions? Anybody have anything to say? Well, tell you one thing.
Why do you need the United Nations, guys? The same language already filters through all of the plans in the city. Why do you need to join this? What is it doing? How's it helping the city of Kamloops? And why are we spending taxpayer money on it? Thank you very much.
Thanks.
What councils?